Okay, my name's Zakashi guys, and in this video here we are going to be doing a tier list literally a day before Ultra Turles releases in Dragon Ball Legends. We were expecting an Ultra for the Sagas from the movies campaign, but it was really seeming like they wasn't going to drop him, and especially with the way that they snubbed him with the Goku banner, that Goku LF release, super unnecessary in my opinion, but it is what it is. But at least he's got his respect and they've given him an Ultra, deservedly. Some people might disagree, but I think he's definitely a good pick. Anyways, this tier list is prior to him coming out, so we'll do another one when he does come out, but I wanted to do one considering I didn't do one for the new LF Goku, to then maybe compare to how the meta is looking post Turles releasing and pre Turles releasing. Let's get into this. Before I go anywhere else in this video, I gotta shout out the boy Dingy, DNGEE_YT. Go ahead and follow him on Twitter. If you want to make your own tier list, you can see the link is right there, tier list template, and then the link is right here if you want to go ahead and make your own. It's the one I'm using and it's everyone's tier list template. It's pretty nice, I'm not gonna lie. Of course, the boy, got a shout out to him because I wouldn't be able to do this video without him. He's close to 4,000 followers, so do him that favor, man. But yeah, let's get into this. Alright, so we're gonna be starting off with the fan service tier and honorable mentions. Now the fan service tier, they're nowhere near the top 10, but I just mentioned them because they're some people's favorite characters or characters that people feel definitely deserve at least somewhat recognition. Now G4's only here because he's been getting beat up by Kaba. Base Kaba solos, by the way. But anyways, the rest of these guys, they're just pretty nice units. They're not too bad. They're not the worst, but of course they're not top 10 contenders in any capacity, at least for me for sure. But they are good. Ultra Gohan out of all of these is most likely to move up in my opinion once Turles drops. And then these honorable mentions are guys that could possibly actually be in the top 10 contention. So Super 17 being the highest, I didn't really want to order it, but I'm telling you in my opinion, Super 17 being the highest, Gogeta Blue right behind him. Rage Shenron here is super good for at least Proud Battle, but you can definitely use him. He is a very good third when you're running Omega Shenron. Evil Majin Buu, his highlight is in Proud Battles from what I've seen. He's so insane over there, but in regular right now in standard, he's not as much as that guy, but he is still quite insane, so he's in the honorable mentions. Corrupted Zamasu, he's holding up decently well. He's anti-Saiyan and there are a lot of Saiyans. And Ultra Broly, I think he's probably better than a lot of these guys actually, but he's one of the units you would just see a lot less in comparison to any of these guys. Ultra Broly is actually really quality with his platinum equipment, but you just don't see enough of him, and I feel like it's common sense to have somewhat popularity or usage as a factor for your tier list, because if I just mention some niche unit and I tell you that he's top 10, you're gonna look at me sideways, you know, especially if it's unit you never see in PvP. So Ultra Broly, I could probably play 100 games and I might see him 5 times at max, but that's just my experience, and I asked my stream and people don't see him either, so put him in honorable mentions, but I think he could be top 10, just not in my tier list. All right, so number 10, we've got the new Goku, the Trio of Might, Triku, whatever you want to call him, Trio of Might Goku, I'm just going to call him that, or Turles Goku. He's number 10 now. This might be of shock to people, and I genuinely think he's not one of those units that are going to move a lot of people long term, but he does have his good points, and let me address his good points. Now, I feel like the biggest reason for his contention in the top 10 list is because he is intentionally built to counter Ultra Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta, and if that guy is the best unit in the game and this guy does an amazing job at stopping him, especially with the teams that this Goku can fit on, while his element is also advantageous over the best unit in the game, not just one of the best units in the game, he can also counter Ultimate Gohan, who's purple, off of element. This guy is going to have some value, but outside of that, he hasn't done anything else to impress me. It's only if I'm using Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta that this guy really shine more than anything else. Outside of that, he's not bad, but he's not something that I would optionally choose to have. As you can see, I don't have him. However, I fought a lot of games against him, and specifically against my G4, he does stress me out, which is why I've given him a 10th spot on this tier list. But when I decided to use other teams, he wasn't of worry, I'm not going to lie. You can take him out pretty easily. He does have some bits and pieces there that will annoy you, like key reduction and whatnot and card destruction, but it's nothing that's gonna like make me sweat long term. Especially if you rise and rush this guy, you can get him out pretty easily. He doesn't have any protection in regards to something like that. But specifically against G4, I actually brought up his kit here. It's the when the ally is getting hit with no switching, he's going to reduce the enemy key. He's going to seal your rising rushes and seal your main ability. So basically G4 becomes useless. And I think that's his biggest selling point. Is very intentionally done. It should go without saying. However, outside of that, I don't feel like he's super crazy or something that's going to move higher than a 10th spot on this tier list. He could move up depending on how teams go with sagas from the movies and Ultra Turles, but right now I don't feel like he deserves more than a 10th spot, and I feel like that's pretty safe. 9th at max. But higher than that, I feel like it's kind of just pushing it because he's one of the newer units and people want to give him props. I don't feel like he's that amazing to go higher than 10. Next up, we got the legendary Super Saiyan Broly, one of the units from the Sagas from the Movies campaign. This is another unit that hasn't completely moved me, but he has some bits and pieces that are super annoying to deal with. Now, I've got him over the new Goku because red beats yellow. That should pretty much be the biggest selling point. I usually don't like to do the color argument, but because Goku down below him on the 10th spot doesn't have anything to really push his value beyond the 10th spot, in my opinion, beyond the fact that he counters G4. From that point, he's a victim to a lot of units. So because of that, this red here, Broly, is a big unit that could take out this Goku, even though they are on the same teams, but powerful opponents is a whole nother deal which Broly can fit on. Now this Broly here, I really dislike that he's able to lock you in, especially if you have one person, so you know the UI mechanic. It's not really a locking, but your timer counts go up because if you try to switch, you know. Outside of that, if you have 2 people alive, so you have your 4-3 team, Broly isn't that amazing, you know. You can just switch into the person that you're worried about, the time counts go up, then your Broly's doing the continuation of the combo, then you switch out to the other person, you know, the person that would probably have some survivability on your team. If you're running a team with no survivability on your team, then Broly becomes somewhat valuable, which is why he's even making a 9th spot in the first place. He can do some good damage. He's on very good teams like powerful opponents, such as from movies. They have good units, specifically powerful opponent though, and he meshes very well with the likes of like Ultra Broly. That's like a team I've seen a lot of people run him on. But overall, if you didn't want to run him with Ultra Broly, you could run him with like the likes of Ultra Golden Frieza as well to have that survivability factor, and it would be a very good melee team. He has some other bits and pieces that's super good, like I believe on his main ability he's able to go type neutral, which is super good. He spawns a blue card. When he transforms, that's post transformation by the way, when he transforms he gets the vanish recovery, which is also super good. This guy here, he's not very much of a sleeper option, but I think it's also easy to take him out, especially with the likes of using Super Vegeta, one Rising Rush. He could easily do a lot of blue card damage, which could also do a lot to legendary Super Saiyan Broly. So I don't really see him as a major threat, but like I said, there's bits and pieces that could very much inconvenience you in the right scenario. But beyond that, I don't think it's much to prop, but it's good enough for him to make 9th on the tier list above all of those in honorable mentions. But let me know what you guys think about the legendary Super Saiyan Broly position. I think it's good enough. I wouldn't put him past 8, but I still think he's good enough to make the 9th spot, which is why I put him there. And I already told you my arguments over the Goku. Broly in most cases is going to be more useful for me anyways when I'm going up against the Goku, because the red is going to do a lot of damage. There's not much counters to his red besides from like using Super Vegeta, but obviously that would definitely change with Ultra Turles releasing. So yeah, that's my number 9 spot, the legendary Super Saiyan Broly. Next up, we got Ultra Golden Frieza and Garlic Jr. These two here, sagas from the movies units that are also powerful opponents. A lot of people might disagree with these two placements, but at least hear me out before you go ahead and say that, you know, this is wrong. But hear me out. So on my previous tier list as well with the legendary Super Saiyan Broly, I have them in a similar position, and I feel like they fulfill similar roles just in different ways. So with Frieza, I think he does way more offensive power than Garlic Jr., but Garlic Jr. is a lot more tankier. But to fill the gap, Golden Frieza comes with his comeback mechanic, which also deals damage, which adds to his offensive prowess. But that doesn't mean Garlic Jr. is a sleeper. Now let me start with Golden Frieza, and then I'll go into Garlic Jr., because I'm low-key going towards the angle of Golden Frieza, and I think especially when Turles drops, Golden Frieza is going to be somebody that people look for once again. But right now, let me talk about Golden Frieza. So Golden Frieza, he has his comeback mechanic, and I think right now in the meta, survivability is very much praised. If you have a unit that has endurance, comeback, revival, anything like that, you know, you're gonna have a lot of value in the game. We see that with Omega Shenron consistently climbing the ranks, and that's super useful. In this case, Golden Frieza, he's kind of been pushed out because when people use Golden Frieza, they like to super buff him, right? But his comeback can still be useful because ultimately it's a second life that you have to get through before you can decide to just freely take him out. If you want to use a Rise and Rush, you will be only taking out his first life, and that's a big inconvenience in PvP, but he's also a super good offensive power. So him having almost everything, doing output damage while also being the survivability factor for for your team, and his damage is not weak, I'll tell you that. Obviously you have him 5 stars, that's you. Even I have him 5 stars though, and my Golden Frieza puts in pain, you know. So I know the guys with higher stars, Golden Frieza, are going to be enjoying themselves, I'll tell you that for Freeski. Golden Frieza is able to really shine, and I think that's something that people should put to the test before they just go ahead and say, Zach, what you don't know what you're talking about. Every time I run into Golden Frieza, he is a threat. He is a genuine threat. That blue card, that ultimate, and then I have to get rid of 2 lives on top of that. His green card is insane. Him increasing cost. His green card, let me talk about that. The trifecta, cover no, key, cards. He also gets his vanish back from that, which is insane. So it's just the perfect green card in my opinion. The only thing that could have made it better if he was an explosive green or something. Overall, he's a pain to deal with, and his individual value has kept him this high on this list for this long. He's been fluctuating a lot. A lot of people have tried to move him out, but for me, his individual value is still worthy of praise to be put in this tier list, especially with the teams he's on. He fits a good position if need to be on any of those teams. Now let's talk about Garlic Jr. In the same way I already spoke about him, he's also super tanky, not like Golden Frieza, but instead of having comeback, it's about his survivability. You know, he's able to survive very, very well. And adding to his tanking ability, he debuffs a lot. So I brought up his kit here to give you the specifics because I wanted you guys to really know. This guy here, he inflicts the enemy with attribute downgrade draw speed -1. So enemies are going to be doing less cards against him anyways. He's also going to reduce your strike and blast arts power for 5-time counts 10%, which is obviously going to make a big difference when he's coming in being tanky and your damage is doing less. And on top of that, for big attacks, ultimates, and awakened arts, you're going to get -40%, which is obviously a big thing just overall. It's just insane that he's stopping you from doing damage while also being a super tanky unit himself. Something else to also note is that this guy is able to heal a bunch. So after the enemy attack is over, I think he heals 10%, and then every time they use a card, I think he's going to heal 3% or something, and then up to like 7 times he's going to heal another 3%. So that's just insane overall. He's going to be taking literally no damage, but then healing back so much damage. It's actually insane. You can rise and rush him and take him out, of course, and that's obviously a way to take out anybody with no survivability. But besides from that, you're gonna be putting in the pain like fighting an Elden Ring boss, which is why I think he's good enough to fit the 7-8 spot. He's a Mega Rising banner character, so a lot of people would opt out for him just off him being the type of character he is. But I feel like if he was to ever return, this guy will see a lot of value, and he's boosted at the time, I think, so that also adds to his value just a bit. But these two, you can see they fulfill similar roles. You can swap them either way and that would be fine in my opinion. But I personally would take Golden Frieza because the second life is just unmatched. Plus I prefer characters that can do more damage, but survivability is really the name of the game, so I would also go Golden Frieza for that reason. But yeah, that's my argument for 7 and 8, Golden Frieza and Garlic Jr. These two, in my opinion, are interchangeable. But if you're asking me to really choose one, like there's a gun to the back of my head and I have to pick, I'm going Golden Frieza just a tiny bit. And I think definitely after Ultra Turles drops, it's going to be solidified that Golden Frieza is tough. Double survivability with Turles having comeback. Yeah, watch out, man. We got my favorite up again, Gajoraga Maharaga, Super Gauge 2, Super Baby 2. This guy here, man, he's got everything, and I'm gonna explain that, but he's not one of the best units in the game or anything like that. He's just a super good option. A lot of people sleep on this guy so much. He's absolutely insane. Now, once we get to the end of this tier list, this guy here, I'm gonna explain for everybody in the top 10. He has a tag that relates to every single unit in my top 10 list. So putting him pretty much smack bang in the middle is perfect for him, except for one character. There's one character in this tier list that he shares no tags with, but every single other character on this list, he shares at least one tag with. And he's a really good element being yellow. There's only like one character that's really going to counter him heavily in my top 10 list as well. So that puts him in a very safe position. But let's talk about what he can do. So you know his gauge breaks your combo, so he's a combo breaker. He's going to be able to, you know, take away some of your cards. He's also going to take away your vanish. So overall, that's super good. He also has offensive prowess. So if his gauge is filled, his blue card is the way to empty it, which is going to do a lot of damage. But then he can also lock you in if he presses an ultimate arts, which is obviously to your benefit. So that's not to be slept on when you're fighting against Super Baby 2. But then he also has the third thing. Support. This guy's anti-Saiyan, and he doesn't just hold it all to himself. He's also going to share it with his teammates so they can do anti-Saiyan damage too. But you thought I was done? This guy fits on good teams. You can give him good defensive equipment. So he almost has everything, you know. He has good attack power. He has good support power. He has good defenses as well. What more can you ask? And the synergy he has with every single unit pretty much in this list is damn near unmatched. He has so many tags: Saiyans, powerful opponent, regeneration. I'm missing some, but like he's got a lot. He's got a lot. Those are like the main three that's going on right now. GT, for example, that's one that I missed. A lot of people sleep on him, man. And just to put icing on the cake, he does extra damage to Saiyans. Extra damage. I think it's 30%. So overall, I really think there's no reason to sleep on Super Baby 2. If you have him 9 stars or higher, this guy is a problem. I face him a lot, and I really always rising rush him to get him out straight away. Or if I'm lucky, I'll be using CMZ, but that's just me being a Fusion Warrior biased type of guy. I just like using CMZ because of the way he plays. Overall, Super Baby 2 is a threat, man. He is a big threat, and you should watch out for him big time. If he's decently starred, he's going to cause you a lot of problems, and those problems, you don't want them. I'll tell you that for free, man. But yeah, for anybody downplaying Super Baby 2, you really can't go against those reasons. Sharing the most tags within characters on the top 10 list, having a really good element, having pretty much everything you could ask for in terms of damage, defenses, and then on top of that, his gauge breaks, combos, and he has the synergy. Come on, man, that's everything. He got everything. I'm not even a Super Baby 2 hater, but I do hate him because he causes me problems. But yeah, that's my number 6 option. Let me know what you guys think. Next up, we got Kid Buu, Zenkai Kid Buu. Kid Buu is very, very valuable. This guy's blast damage has been fitting super well. It's pretty obvious who my last options are in this tier list, but you know, Kid Buu fits well with most of them, you know. With Majin Buu Saga and powerful opponents, even regeneration, it's like a branch of powerful opponents in my eyes. Kid Buu is able to flourish very well in this meta on blast teams. He's quite scary. Now, he comes with endurance, so he also has the survivability factor, and I think that's the icing on the cake, or even the biggest selling point for him. I think any unit with survivability is always going to be a plus, especially right now in this meta. With the release of Omega Shenron, everybody's trying to survive. Playing the long game is way more effective. It's not like the 6th anniversary peak no more when G4 dropped. Everybody was just running Fusion Warriors and running teams that have only 1 life. No. If your team has a unit that can break combos, if your team has a unit that can survive past rising rushes, if your team has buff cancellation, endurance, comeback, revival, missing one, indestructible, you are going to be eating in this meta. And Kid Buu having endurance also does that. But his blast damage is insane. He has a green card that can also give him vanish recovery, draw a blast card as well. He can get a bit of Covenant, which is always super good. His main ability spawns his ultimate and it cancels buffs, so he can do an insane amount of damage. He's on a good team with other buff cancellation units like Evil Majin Buu and Ultimate Gohan. But even if you wanted to use him on powerful opponents, he can fit super well with Omega Shenron. So this guy here has pretty high stock for obvious reason. He could have easily been 3 or 4, but I think 5 is safe because of the arguments I'm going to give for 3 and 4. He's just outside the range, but could have easily been in the range. And for other arguments, some people might move him up. I think he's just a super good option to have on those teams. Very good option, like very good option, but not enough to put him over the 3 and 4 options that I will speak about right now. But yeah, that's Kid Buu. Give him your props, man. Now we're on the number 3/4 spot, and we've got Omega Shenron and Fusing Super Vegito. Now this was a very hard one for me, and I think Fusing Super Vegito is on the slight decline, but a lot of people in my last tier list were complaining that Omega Shenron definitely has way more value being green and having survivability, even though Fusing Super Vegito's rush is just one of the best mechanics in the game, if not the best mechanic in the game, because it's almost a guaranteed kill unless you can cancel his buffs. If you can survive because he doesn't catch you on the switch because of his type neutral that he gets, you know, you have to really be an idiot to not kill a Fusing Super Vegito's mechanic unless you're like Ultimate Gohan, you know, or other buff cancellation units with the team being perfectly synergized. But yeah, that was a bit of over talking about Vegito, but it's because I have to explain that so people fully understand how threatening his Rise and Rush mechanic is, even if he is color counted to the death. But with Omega Shenron, I think Omega Shenron can easily get the slight edge, and you might have noticed that I have him 1 in front of Fusing Super Vegito. So let me actually talk about Omega Shenron first. I'm going to be giving him the slight edge for this argument and having Fusing Super Vegito move down. You probably already noticed as well, Fusing Super Vegito was in the debate with Ultimate Gohan last time, but I've decided to move him slightly down. but let me explain why. So with Omega Shenron first, right? Omega Shenron, like I've been saying this whole video, survivability is the name of the game. If you got endurance, comeback, revival, indestructible, you are going to be high stock. You can break combos, cancel buffs. You are amazing. Every good team right now, besides from teams with G4, and even some teams with G4 have survivability because of Omega Shenron. You're pretty much playing a game where you have barriers to get through. You're not playing a one life game, and because of that, it's very hard to fight a team if your team is not one with survivability. Fusing Super G or having no survivability kind of makes me feel like Omega Shenron is more valuable, and every time I fight Omega Shenron, I feel like I have to work very hard to get past that second life. Omega Shenron's on a bunch of teams, so he's on powerful opponents, he's on GT, he's on Fusion Warriors, to the point where he's even pushed Fusing Gogeta Blue out. So that says a lot. Regeneration 2, GT, did I mention that? Powerful opponents, I'm just naming all of them again just to make sure I didn't miss any, because he's on a lot of good teams, man. He can fit there and people are using him because he's going to live. Now he's also super annoying in some senses. For example, he's gonna heal a lot, you know, he lowers the sub count, so you can come back into the battlefield and take a rising rush. It's not just easy peasy to get around him, so he shouldn't be like disregarded. He can also do quite a bit of damage, and with the blast teams in the meta right now, so I mentioned Super 17 being one of my highest honorable mentions, and I also mentioned Kid Buu just earlier. Boy, this guy is a problem. But I wouldn't put Kid Buu above Omega Shenron in any regard. If I was building a team, Omega Shenron gets chosen first before Kid Buu, because even Kid Buu's endurance can get taken out by fusing Super Vegeto's Rising Rush. That should be enough explaining for Omega Shenron's value in general. He's also a decent element. Well, he's not a decent element actually. It's just a simple fact that he has indestructible that makes his element not matter. He can also go type neutral at certain points. I think it's against damage sustained, so that also adds to him his element not really mattering anyways, as he's gained value even though there's so many purples. Like for my tier list so far, you can already tell Ultra Golden Frieza and Garlic Jr. are there. Broly has also been mentioned in the honorable mentions, and you already guys know the top #1 unit, so, and the #2 unit, so he's not safe, but like his survivability just overrides any worry of elements. It's actually quite scary to see a unit this valuable, and if he was an other element, if he was a different element, he could damn near be top 2-3 in the game for sure. Like right now I've got him in the debates of 3 and 4, but he could be in the conversation of the second best unit in the game if he was a different element, so that's super props to him. But let's talk about fusing Super Vegito. One thing I do like about him, outside of his Rise and Rush mechanic, because I don't need to speak about that anymore, I spoke about that quite a bit, and I'm sure you guys should know the value of his Rise and Rush. It's a guaranteed kill. If it's not a guaranteed kill, you're going to at least take out 1 life, or you're going to take out any barriers or survival, so that should go without saying. But something that is very underrated is when G4 counters, so we're going to talk about G4 here specifically because he's the best unit in the game, shouldn't be debatable. When G4 counters, G4 destroys all of Fusing Super Vegeto's cards. Now, that's why this is important, is because Fusing Super Vegito, post transformation, he's able to get his Vanish back faster for every card he draws, which means that he should get at least 40% just from drawing cards, and his draw speed is going to be really, really high in most of those cases. So before G4 can even connect to him from long range, he will get his Vanish back again. So if you want to Vanish and then attack him to take out his counter, activate his counter, sorry, Vegito will get his Vanish back, and it'll be as if his counter didn't even matter. With other units, especially when you're 1v1 with G4, you're pretty much screwed if you vanished and then popped his gauge. It's really annoying to deal with, but Vegito's not one of those units that can get stuck like that. His draw speed is quite insane. He can get cover null pretty easily. The speed of his synchro is out of this world, but pre-transformation he can still be super useful, which is why I actually praise him a lot. So his damage output, draw speed, and cover null factors keep him in the running very well. But overall, all of that is just additional. With the Dragon Ball speed that he gets, I didn't even talk about that. The Dragon Ball speed, bro, just having him on your team, you're able to get 2 to 3 rushes. Your minimum rush with Vegito on your team is 2. That's absurd, your minimum. But yeah, the main thing is obviously his rising rushes, and everything else is just a super nice cherry on top. So how do you want to go? Do you want to value survivability and play the long game? Because Vegito Rise and Rush, sure, he Rise and Rushes Omega, gets out the indestructible. Now Vegito has to deal with a green unit. It's not going to be the easiest. It's not impossible though, because he does go type neutral when people switch for 3-time accounts. So you can take out Omega, but it's not the easiest, you know. It's a little barrier there, which is why I have him at 4th and not 3rd. I think that's very fair though. Omega Shenron consistently rising in value, and he's only going to go up with Ultra Turles dropping. That blue unit, Omega Shenron survivability, will somehow shine even further through all the purples, and now there's a blue for him to be advantaged over, just giving him the 3 points, man. But yeah, those are my 3 and 3rd and 4th spot. Let me know what you guys think about those as well. Now, the second option on this list, I'm not going to talk much about him, but we got Ultimate Gohan. You know, Ultimate Gohan is probably one of the best solo units in the game. He could even be argued as the best solo unit in the game, but I'm not going to go that far. But personally, I hate fighting him the most out of any unit in this game because of his buff cancellations and the fact that he always has a green card into a blue card. As well, he can just take away your vanish at any point, which I think is just really unfair. You know, if you do a strike card and he vanishes you, that's a free rising rush with your vanish gone, or even an ultimate, you know. Having him cancel buffs 3 times from blue cards, ultimates, and even the rising rush is super inconvenient too, because in most cases you're not going to get past all 3, and even if you intend to get past all 3, Ultimate Gohan will still be healing a lot throughout the game with his endurance. He also comes with survivability. He's on an insane team. Majin Buu Saga is top tier, and even if you don't want to use him there, people have been leader slotting him with G4 and fusing Super Vegito, even other teams like Powerful Opponent because of his individual power. So overall, he's just a super nice unit. I don't need to go much more into it. He's a super good element for this meta too. I think he fits the bill to be the 2nd best unit in the game. Maybe soon first if they keep going out their way to counter G4. But hey, for now, we'll leave him at 2nd. Things could change going forward towards the end of the year, but I think we should really keep an eye on Ultimate Gohan because, boy, he is a threat to me, should be a threat to you guys too, and if you use him, you know how much he's a threat to other people. And then Ultra Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta, the king of the tier list, the #1 unit in the game. He is actually on a decline. He's never had really good defenses, so that makes me worry about him, especially with how they're going out their way to counter him. But besides from his defenses, even if you just go out your way to build him defensively, his offensive power is still at the top of the game. His ultimates might not do as much damage as they once used to, but they're still pretty much killing at every single point. But even beyond that, his counter is just unfathomable, bro. Fair enough, Goku is the one unit, the Triku is the one unit here to counter him, but the fact that his counter exists, it implies that you have to get a minimum of 4 priorities. 4 priorities, and I mean, you know, when you try like time the attacks and then you vanish and you get them, or you just strike attack them and they're not ready, or blast attack, whatever it is, just starting your combo is a priority. You have to get a minimum of 4 to take him out in most cases, because once you get 1, that combo is going to lead into his gauge activating, his counter, mad annoying. Then you have to do that 2 more times at least, and then the 4th one you can get 1 clean slate. And then also considering the fact that this is a 3v3 game, so whatever team he's on, Fusion Warriors with the survivability of Omega Shenron and fusing Super Vegito, very insane. Leader slot him on the Majin Buu Saga with Ultimate Gohan and Evil Majin Buu. Buff cancellations, very insane. You put him on powerful opponents, Omega Shenron still there, is very insane. Overall, he's fitting on too many nice teams, and people are also losing him as a leader slot option because he's individually so overpowered. So it doesn't matter what you do with him, wherever you put him, he's strong enough single-handedly to take over any single battle. And that's the problem. That's why people are annoyed with him. That's why people want his banner to return. The stock for him is just way too high to overlook. He's not going to move for a while, but again, they are going out their way to counter him. The Triku Goku was pretty much not even the start. That's just one of the steps taken to try and take him out. They do this all the time. They tried last year with Ultra Vegito Blue. Ultra Vegito Blue beat the odds. I really hope G4 does beat the odds as well. So we will see, but that's my #1 pick, G4, and this is my tier list. Now, before I end the video, I always do this section now when I create my tier list. I always look at the tier list and consider if there's anything that I would move, because once you're making the tier list, trust me, making the tier list is very difficult. It's not easy. You're doing everything on the fly. Yes, you might have planned it out prior, which I did, but once you see the finished product and you stare at it, you could think of it as seeing something in hindsight. You guys watching the video, you're seeing my tier list, you're just looking at the finished product and you're thinking your own reasonings as to why somebody might be better than somebody else. So I'm going to address some things that I think people might address, but I can't read you guys' minds. Of course, that's why the comment section is there. Please leave a genuine comment. Don't just say trash list, but I should have probably said that at the start of the video. Anyways, I think a lot of people might think I'm underrating this Goku because of how much of a threat G4 is. So if somebody wanted to move him up to 9 or maybe even 8, I wouldn't be opposed to that, but I'm personally not doing that because I think it's too soon to see his value really in the game. I feel like where he's fitting on teams isn't super valuable. People are picking him up because they just don't like G4 and not because he's a main contender for any of his teams. He does have good stock in the game for obvious reasons. G4, duh. But outside of that, like I've said multiple times, I don't think he's doing enough. So I think he could easily move up to a 9th and 8th spot, and I think some people are already valuing him at that. So if your tier list does have him at a 9 or 8, I'm not going to complain about it. I think that's pretty much good. Moving forward, other than that, I think a lot of people have been stacking up Super 17, but I think he just doesn't make enough appearances to value him in the top 10. I think it's really forcing him into the top 10. I would play maybe 50 games and might see him 3 times, and even then he's going to be glass in all of those games. He can do a lot of damage, but his defenses have decreased a lot since he was on the boost. But he does have good teammates. He's on powerful opponents with Kid Buu or Omega Shenron. That's an insane team. Put him on Fusion Warriors with Omega Shenron and G4. That's an insane team. Even Fusion Super Vegeta could fail on that team, but he has survivability teammates, which is the big thing. Androids as well, weaker team of course, but it's something you can build upon. So I'm gonna keep him an honorable mention, but I could easily see why somebody would have him at 10. But the popularity argument or usage argument, sorry, not popularity, usage argument, you don't see him enough for me to value his stock. And I'm pretty much going to put Ultra Broly in that same boat. People might have questions about fusing Gold G to Blue. And honestly, on every single team he's on, he is not being a first round pick. His value is just declining. People are using him because he's Gold G to Blue. Ultimately, he's not bad. He's one of the most used units in the game. I think he's even top 5, but he's Gold G to Blue, so you can assume that's just because he's a hype unit. It's not that he's trash. It's not that he can't be used. It's similar to Red Beast Gohan when he was kind of fading out. Red Beast Gohan, when he started fading out when Ultra Gohan came out, because the Son family team became blast orientated, but people refused to let go of Red Beast because Red Beast is a good unit, or was a good unit. He was a better unit, but the team doesn't suit him. He's not a first round pick. Ultimately, if you had the better options that exist, if you had the new Goku to counter G4, if you have the other movies options, if you had the other fusion words, Omega fusing Super Vegeta and G4, you would use them instead of Gold G to Blue. And if you don't, that's your preference, but we're not arguing preference here. We're here to make a objective tier list, and that's why he's out of the top 10. He could easily move on, and I've made a whole video about the downfall of Gold G to Blue. His value isn't determined by himself. It's literally determined by how the meta is shaped, and honestly, it's just not shaped for him. Outside of that, I don't think anything else is really in debate. People might be upset about fusing Super Vegeta, but I'm not entertaining that. I'm literally one of the biggest Vegeta fans, but I'm not a biased Vegeta fan. He's moving down, obviously, because survivability is more valuable than the Rising Rush. Even though the Rising Rush is going to guarantee a hit, most teams have more than one factor of survivability. You know, Kid Buu's right below him, and these guys on the same team become indestructible and endurance, you know. It's getting rough out here, and now Turles is dropping, so watch out for that. And I think that's pretty much it. The rest of the tier list is pretty good in my eyes, but those are just some things I wanted to discuss because I know people might disagree, but I'll check the comments anyways. But yeah, man, that's going to be the end of the video. I'm getting this out a day before Turles drops. It's a tier list prior to him releasing, so hopefully you guys did enjoy this video. Let me know you guys' thoughts. The meta might shape a lot more differently, and I'm predicting it to become really annoying. The games are going to become long term, so you're going to be playing games that easily go over 120 time accounts because everybody's going to be running endurance, comeback, revival, indestructible. It's going to be a tough time for the guys that were just using strict Fusion Warriors. Even though because Fusion Warriors is so dominant, you would still see it. There's obviously a harder time when you're fighting teams like Powerful Opponent, Regeneration, Margin Buu Saga. But yeah, hopefully you guys did enjoy this video. If you haven't already, make sure to press that subscribe button. We're on this grind to 100,000 subscribers. I appreciate you guys for watching, man. My name is Zakashi, guys, and I will see you guys in the next one, man.